There's a crucial molecule in your body that helps control everything: your circulation, your energy, your stamina, your heart, even your sharpness of mind. It's called nitric oxide. But after age 40, your body makes less and less of it. Less blood flow, less stamina, less of you. But now there's N101, the nitric oxide lozenge developed by Dr. Nathan Bryan, the world's leading nitric oxide researcher backed by Nobel Prize-winning science. N101 is designed to naturally restore your body's nitric oxide levels. Just do what I do and let one dissolve in your mouth twice a day. I especially make sure to take it before workouts. N101 goes to work in minutes, releasing nitric oxide directly into your bloodstream, supporting healthy circulation, boosting oxygen delivery to your muscles and brain, helping you feel the way you're supposed to feel. More energy, better blood flow, sharper focus. Day after day. N101, it's the science of you working better. Visit HoffmanNO.com. That's HoffmanNO.com and use coupon code Hoffman10 for 10% off N101. Welcome to today's Intelligent Medicine Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Ronald Hoffman. You know, there's a lot of ways that we can feel inexplicably ill. It may be stress, it may be diet, it may be a pathogen like a virus or bacteria or fungus. It could be, simply the aging process. It could be mitochondria. It could be inflammation. There are a variety of ways that we feel inexplicably crappy. And medicine is good at saving our lives. If you run over by a truck, or if you have sometimes a challenging cardiovascular condition or cancer, medicine's making incredible breakthroughs. But when it comes to the walking wounded, people who just don't feel right, that's one of the areas in which conventional medicine falls short. Today, we're going to talk to a detective of sorts, who through her own experience has come to realize the importance of a certain type of environmental exposure, one that we are all vulnerable to, that may be a main driver of some of those conditions like chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, brain fog, and a variety of bewildering symptoms in even, severe autoimmune disease. And that is mold. Mold is sometimes the missing piece in the equation when we try to evaluate why a person isn't feeling well. Today's guest is Arianna Thacker. She is a chemical engineer. Doesn't come to this as a health professional. She comes to this as a chemical engineer. And she, by virtue of the fact that she was able to unravel her own challenging health condition, became a venture capitalist, developing a testing program that enables people to evaluate whether mold exposure is part and parcel of their health equation. Am I stating it correctly, Arianna?
Just a quick minor nit. So I actually left my VC firm to run Moldco full time. The patient journey was so treacherous and so challenging that I just wanted to commit all of my life force and energy and focus into solving this problem for patients.
Okay, so your background as a venture capitalist has helped you expand this as potentially a business opportunity to develop in a sense, a company or a service that helps people better understand whether mold exposure is part of their problem.
Correct. Yes. Learned a lot about how to design systems, where to source capital from to be able to fund starting a new company, as well as how to have access to some of the most talented people I know to make what we've built possible for patients today.
Okay, so detail your experience. Obviously, you encountered a health challenge. So describe that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I also love how you open the podcast too, emphasizing where modern medicine is quite strong in acute, urgent, and emergent cases, and very rarely for chronic conditions, impacting so many patients. And that's where my story begins. I'm a patient first. I became sick due to mold in my home. I went from a very healthy life to one that was plagued with multiple symptoms, where initially I was able to run stairs as my warm up, to then walking stairs and being out of breath and short of breath. So it was such an interesting transition to experience that. And I had visions of my future where I would just stay sick and stay stuck. So what I ended up doing was getting back to better health, working with the world experts, reading hundreds of publications, and really understanding how mold impacted my health and how to get back to better health, and translating that into what we've built at Moldco. And prior to that, chemical engineer by trade, I've always loved the sciences. I've always loved understanding human health, understanding physics, understanding math even, and worked as a chemical engineer, then worked as a venture capitalist, building my own investment firm, and now building Moldco as a CEO and founder.
Indeed. Okay, so you were going along fine. What were the symptoms that developed for you? And initially, I presume you had a medical journey where you went to a variety of health practitioners. You probably went to your primary care. Maybe you referred to specialists. And did they miss the mark?
They missed the mark completely. I ended up counting the total number of healthcare professionals I went to during my journey, and it was over a dozen, from immunologists to allergists to pulmonologists to primary care. No one could really identify what was going on or get to the root cause, despite the wide variety of symptoms, from brain fog, cognitive issues where I had to reread my emails multiple times over to even process the information that was there that was completely new to me. Further into the illness, I actually started slurring my words. I also experienced gastrointestinal issues, which felt a lot like IBS, like alternating constipation, diarrhea. I was losing clumps of my hair at a time. My hair got so thin, I actually had to cut my hair short into a bob. I also experienced rapid weight gain and more. So it was a wide variety of symptoms impacting multiple systems in the body. And it happened fairly quickly. I was only in the exposed environment in Miami. It was an apartment there for 6.5 months before developing something called chronic inflammatory response syndrome, which is typically validated through biomarkers, through visual contrast sensitivity, through symptom clusters, through genetic testing, and more. So all of those signs unique to chronic inflammatory response syndrome lit up for me, but it was a signal that everyone missed going through the referral ping pong system in standard medical care.
Did you experience any medical gaslighting? Because as a young female with just a panoply of symptoms, vague symptoms, symptoms that to some extent appeared psychological, mood related and fatigue related.
Absolutely. It was frequently described as anxiety or stress or burnout. I countered that point with, this is the most in flow my career has ever been. I don't feel stressed about work. I actually feel very happy about work. And I also had physical manifestations of these symptoms, like the considerable hair loss and weight gain, which is new. It wasn't all entirely internal, slurring of words and mood changes that my friends and loved ones noticed and pointed out to me. So there were points where I questioned my own symptoms due to how these specialists were responding to me and how there wasn't clear answers. And thankfully, I have this stubborn streak where I'm obsessed with finding what's true and what's actually going on. And luckily, I held a position that, there's a chance that these healthcare providers are incorrect. And there's another reason for why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And this is very new to me, the sensations I'm feeling. I've always been healthy. I've never had health issues. So to experience that was almost inexplicable, but I felt like there was an explanation that could be found and just wasn't aware to them.
Well, we know that medicine loves acronyms. So
Yeah.
CIRS, chronic inflammatory
Response syndrome.
response
Yeah.
syndrome. Okay.
Yeah.
And is that something that's recognized by the majority of physicians, or is it just certain specialists possessed of unique knowledge and perspective who recognize this?
I would say providers and healthcare practitioners in the mold and alternative medicine space do recognize CIRS and frequently use that acronym. I would say it's less adopted in standard medical practice. However, the NIH did recently update their page regarding mold to reflect the symptoms and presentation of CIRS in patients, which includes the widespread inflammation, the mood changes, the immune response, and more. So they're hitting the illness on the head in terms of the description, less so the exact name to be used. I would say we're still a long ways away from CIRS being recognized in medical practice. However, I could see something like mold-related illness or mold toxicity being more readily adopted versus the term CIRS.
So we've long recognized that there's such a thing as mold allergy. Allergists, immunologists recognize this. And I experienced this once when I borrowed a car that had been sitting in a driveway in kind of a forested area. I guess I'd been sitting in the driveway for too long, it was a hot day. I rolled up the windows and I turned on the air conditioner, and immediately I got this very kind of heavy, moldy smell. And I don't have asthma. I've never had an asthma attack, but I actually felt my lungs close down immediately when I was exposed to this mold. But I think what you're talking about is a more pervasive problem than simply mold allergy, which is well recognized. Maybe that's sort of the tip of the iceberg of mold reactions.
It's all of the above. So allergies, asthma, fungal infections, or I would say the more acute presentation of what happens due to mold exposure. With CIRS, it's more this ongoing inflammatory state where first your innate immune system goes haywire, your first line of defense, and that leads to the system-wide inflammation that patients experience, which can persist in and out of exposure, which is more unique versus allergies and an asthma usually need some sort of triggering event or ongoing exposure. With a fungal infection that's embedded, that's more internal, that's causing problems. So mold and the impacts on human health show up as all of the above. And our take is that this is one of the bigger medical blind spots of our time. It's the ongoing inflammatory issues that mold exposure can cause. And this is the gap that standard medical practice and even immunologists and allergists tend to miss in patients.
Well, okay, so there are mold spores, which like, cat and dog hair and, weeds and tree pollen can cause reactions. But there's another element to mold exposure, which is mycotoxins. And I presume that's what you're aiming at, right?
There's actually multiple different types of microbes and their fragments that lead to the development of CIRS to our understanding today. There's the mold species, there's their mycotoxins and VOCs. There's also
volatile organic compounds, which are kind of like gases, right? They're not even so much particles, but like a gas, like some kind of miasma that's released by the mold.
Correct. And there's also getting a bit more nerdy cell wall fragments and pieces of those cell wall fragments, beta glucans. There's also, this is also kind of fringe in the field, is still developing in our understanding of it. There's the actinobacteria. Endotoxins is a bit more established, but its application in water damaged buildings and then leading to CIRS. So there's this microbial stew that's happening where it's not just the mycotoxins, it's this whole grouping of microbes that patients are being exposed to. Dr. Shoemaker had mentioned that he believes it's hundreds of different.
By the way, has been a guest on this program. Dr. Shoemaker is like a landmark kind of researcher in this field, right?
I mean, he coined the term chronic inflammatory response syndrome. He identified the biomarkers, the diagnostic criteria, the treatment approach. He then went on to develop a cottage industry in the field, like helping incept multiple companies and finding founders for those companies, from pharmacies to environmental testing and more. Like, he is so beyond prolific. It's pretty incredible.
Indeed. So how pervasive is this problem? Is this like the rare instance of somebody moving into an apartment where, unbeknownst to them, there's black mold, or maybe they see something like mold on the wall, but they ignore it, and but it's not that common?
Working with the world experts in the space, our best estimate, and we've published this in an economic impact report, is 20 million US adults severely impacted and 5 million pediatric patients severely impacted. We believe the upper end of patients impacted, moderate to severe, is closer to 50 million Americans. And the main reason for that is that roughly 50% of homes in the US have some sort of mold exposure already, or water damage to the level that we believe can cause mold, coupled with a genetic susceptibility, which is core to Dr.
Right.
Shoemaker's research, the HLA haplotype. So when you
In other words,
consider,
so two, like a husband and wife might be in the
yes,
same environment, and there's like a disconnect between the degree of severity of their symptoms, right? And which makes it even less plausible. It's like, what's going on here? I'm fine. Why are you so sick?
yes, this is a common misconception that the same environment means the same impact on human
Hmm.
health, and the genetic susceptibility is the big factor there. Assuming they're not immunocompromised, assuming they're in relatively good health. This is frequently coined the canary effect for why
Yeah.
that difference is true. And what we often see, since you get an HLA haplotype from your mom and your dad, is it's usually like one of the parents, if not both of the parents, and then the kids. It also depends too, who's spending a lot of time in exposure. Are they close to exposure? For example, if it's mainly in one of the kids' bedroom, that child, especially if they're genetically susceptible, may get sick first.
Hmm.
So it doesn't mean that everyone's getting sick at the same time with
So,
the
so a
same.
child might be more predisposed because their immune system is less robust, or perhaps an older person might get sick, or maybe a person with diabetes with the so-called comorbidities, just like with COVID, some people kind of breezed through it and other people were hammered.
Yes, there's age, health status, genetic susceptibility, duration and exposure, the types of species as well. Some molds are more harmful than others, although our take is that you just want to avoid a water damage building in general.
Well, so what about your experience in, like, of course, you were in the mold belt. You were in the southeast of the United States, where, there's a lot of, sometimes flooding exposure, hurricanes, whatever, torrential rain. And, the hot temperatures that really foster mold proliferation. What was going on in that place that you moved into? And was it just not obvious from the start?
Knowing what I know today, it would have been abundantly obvious. I wish I knew the obvious environmental signs. There was a strong earthy, musty odor. There was discoloration. There was even some areas of the home with visible mold. I had no idea at the time that mold could cause the health issues it did to
Hmm.
me. And I was even skeptical that I got sick due to mold even after it happened and after we found the source. So the most abundant source of mold in where I was staying was throughout the HVAC system. Very acute exposure for in just 6.5 months to develop SIRS. For me as a healthy adult, that was in my early 30s, not no prior health issues. Like it was a very bizarre thing to happen. I think what ended up causing that was that the HVAC systems weren't cleaned. They were likely never inspected. There's a lot of dust throughout the HVAC system. You can even see dust on the vents, and dust is
You,
organic
you're
matter.
talking
It's
about like central air conditioning and heating.
Yes, I was staying in a unit where it was an exposed like duct system for the HVAC system. I could see the ductwork and I could see the vents. And on those vents there was quite a bit of dust, which meant likely dust throughout the HVAC system too. I never got a chance to look inside the system. However, the air sample showed high levels of mold, like 34,000 spores per meter cubed. We did a control outside, which was only 2,000
Hmm.
spores per meter cubed, so significantly more mold inside, Aspergillus and Penicillium specifically. And unique to Florida, to your point, is that it's in subtropical conditions. There's high indoor humidity. Even if you don't have direct water damage, that high indoor humidity is water intrusion in a way. And with the dust, that's organic matter, which is mold food. So it's almost this perfect environment for mold to grow, especially very common in Florida. And from my experience working with patients through Moldco and more, these landlords aren't checking the HVAC systems. and they're not clean, very, very prone to microbial growth. Beyond the hurricane and other environmental issues that happen, especially in the Fort Myers area. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of flooding. So what we end up seeing is that Florida is one of our bigger mold states.
Indeed. Okay, folks, at this point, let's pause and allow one of our sponsors an opportunity to share an important message with you. So here goes. Please listen up. You know that feeling. You're exhausted, but your brain just won't quit. You're staring at the ceiling, watching the clock, dreading the morning. Here's something that actually helps. It's called Kyolic Specialty Series Sleep Mushrooms Plus. And it's unlike anything you've tried before. This isn't some chemical sleep aid that leaves you foggy and dragging the next day. This is a clean botanical formula built around certified organic reishi mushrooms grown on real farms, not in a lab, combined with valerian root to help you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer, L-theanine to quiet that racing mind, and Kyolic Age Garlic Extract, one of the most trusted wellness ingredients available for circulation and stress support. It's vegan, non-GMO, no gluten, no dairy, no artificial anything. Just 2 capsules, 2 hours before bed, and you wake up actually rested, not groggy, not out of it, just refreshed. Kyolic Sleep Mushrooms Plus from Wakanaga. Learn more about this and the entire Kyolic Mushrooms Plus line at kyolic.com. That's KYOLIC.com. Look for Kyolic at natural health stores nationwide and online. Thanks for listening, and thanks for supporting our sponsors. They are Wet-Bake Intelligent Medicine, continuing free resource to you. And now back to today's guest, mold expert Ariana Thacker. So it doesn't have to be this notorious black mold, Stachybotrys. It can be other types of mold, but talk about Stachybotrys. That's particularly devastating, and I think it is actually now well recognized that this can cause not just allergy, mild malaise, but neurological damage.
There's multiple different types of toxic and even non-toxic as a label for mold. We like to avoid almost any type of microbial exposure. Different molds are worse than others. Black mold has that reputation. There's also Cladosporium and Aspergillus and Penicillium. There's multiple types of these common molds that form in water-damaged buildings. It doesn't necessarily need the label of toxic versus non-toxic. Some of these molds are also known carcinogens. Some are more common in certain geographies. So I would urge listeners that it's impossible to know just off of a visual inspection what kind of mold you have, or if you even have a mold issue. You always need some sort of inspection or assay of your environment, because there could be hidden mold and you don't necessarily know what that mold is just through a visual cue.
Indeed. And, I just recall that in the Bible, they talk about mold. And I'm actually quoting from Leviticus, which is one of the Old Testament books. And there's instructions from the Lord to Moses and Aaron. When you enter the land of Canaan, which I am giving you as your possession, and I put a spreading mold in a house in that land, the owner of the house must go and tell the priest, I have seen something that looks like a defiling mold in my house. And the priest is to order the house to be empty before he goes in to examine the mold, so that nothing in the house will be pronounced unclean. And if it has a greenish or reddish appearance, the priest shall go out the doorway of the house and close it up for 7 days. It's like, it sounds like Mold Co. has some precedents in the Old Testament, about inspecting houses for mold. And I think that the final solution to the mold was just to burn the house down, destroy the house, abandon it.
It's wild. Yeah, I think that's Leviticus 14, and it's crazy that we haven't really advanced since a couple thousand years plus later from the guidance in
It's
in
like
the Bible.
5,000 years ago.
5,000 years. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's been a minute. And here we are in the exact same place. I would even say that the modern built environment is getting worse for multiple reasons. So new energy efficiency standards, and frankly, the what's fashionable in building new companies, from material selection to design, actually lends itself to more microbial
Yeah.
growth. You have these tighter tolerances and thinner walls, and hence more microbial growth happening. And there's just, I would say, like less attention to designs that allow for healthy buildings, optimizing for what's most energy efficient.
Okay, so tell us about your journey from patient to well person with the energy and wherewithal to establish a mold detection and abatement company.
Yes, it took some time. So I got sick in 2022, and I would say it took 2 years to feel very much like myself. And in some ways, I'm still recovering. I'm still pushing myself to get back to the energy levels I had before I got sick, and to exercise to the level I did. But I would say the symptoms resolution was extraordinary. I no longer feel any of the symptoms holding me back. I got better through something called the Shoemaker Protocol. So following the guidance of Dr. Shoemaker to get back to better health. And now I'm feeling I've implemented things in my life to be even in better health soon, like really pushing myself to just be better and have better habits, from diet to exercise and more. In many ways, getting sick was kind of a gift. Just to have way more attention
Like a
to.
wake up call, right?
It was a wake up call in so many ways. So for that, I'm really grateful for the experience. And it was through a lot of the learnings I had going through that patient journey, which was expensive. It was time consuming. It was confusing. There's a lot of misinformation online, a lot of different philosophies, a lot of things that actually sometimes hurt patients too.
Maybe
Being
some like wackadoodle solutions. So like, yeah.
Yeah, so there's just so many trap doors that folks fall into, and so essentially built the solution I wish I had at the time, from lab testing in the home to the body, testing for those key biomarkers, to virtual care. We have specialized trained providers, and we ship medications directly to patients' door. And the vision was to build something affordable and accessible for patients at a tenth to a hundredth the cost of what most patients pay otherwise, and create something that helps people get back to aspirational health and better health in the most efficient path possible, not going through that ping pong system or trialing and erroring on their body, or accepting a lot of the guesswork that's happening. I'm not saying what we have is perfect. There's so much more research that's needed in this field, but what we have is what we consider to be the most evidence-based solutions in the space today. And our vision too is to expand research as well. So we've amassed the world's largest data set on the health impacts due to mold exposure, including thousands of whole blood samples. So we want to continue to advance what we have, but what we have today is what's considered best in class for patients.
It's emerging science. But,
Yeah.
having treated some mold patients, they can be very complex. There can be a variety of things going on at once. It could be, simultaneously metabolic problems and hormonal problems, because mold exposure is notorious for messing up your endocrine system, and, digestive problems, microbiome problems. It gets complicated, but it seems like the essence of it is to, eliminate the bad stuff, maybe reduce exposure, get away from the exposure. And if there's an internal mold factory inside you, address that. But at the same time, also enhance the good stuff. So get rid of the bad stuff and enhance the good stuff. The good stuff may be better nutrition, maybe certain nutrients or supplements that have an immune, I won't use immune boosting, but an immune regulating effect, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's very close to our approach. We call it detox, clear, repair. So detox, as in remove toxins from the body, clear, remove problematic bacteria, often known as MARCoNS, and biofilm disruption. And then lastly, our repair step is with a peptide. And that helps re-regulate the immune system. And what we've seen is help patients become more resilient over time when re-exposure ultimately happens again. We also advise on diet. Most common in these patients is the low amylose diet, as well as key supplements such as a high dose
Lo-
omega-3.
Low
Yeah.
amylose diet. Let's double click on that, because I haven't heard it. I've heard a lot of diets, but I haven't heard a low, is it amylose, which is
Amyl,
starch? It's a low
sorry,
starch diet.
low starch diet.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is what Dr. Shoemake, and this is core to his research, and
Hmm.
now it's replicated across certified providers here in the US and even abroad, avoiding potatoes, including sweet potatoes, rice, bananas. So having that low starch diet, what we've noted helps reduce an MMP9 biomarker and some of the inflammation. And it's not something you need long term. Usually it's just for a 30-day window.
Good.
We suggest this diet.
How's that different from the Candida diet or the yeast connection diet, which is I starts out low sugar, that's a given, but then, often is low carb.
There's some overlap with some other diets, like even the keto diet, it looks
Mhm.
very similar. There's foods you can and cannot eat, and we're just mainly focused on that starchy elimination for patients.
Mhm. Interesting. All right. Uh, I want to get to solutions, and we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
But when we return, I want to talk about, how you can be a mold detective and suss out how to detect if mold is a problem in your home or your workplace, and B, how to find out if there's something going on in your body which is indicative of mold exposure, because there may be diagnostic tests. We can't just presume that person feels crappy, that it's due to mold. There might be some markers, you say objective signs that mold is the culprit. And then, talk about some solutions. What can you do in your environment to minimize exposure? What can you do to get well once you've been exposed to mold? There's a lot to talk about in part two. Our guest is Arianna Thacker. And so tell us about Moldco. Moldco, is there a website?
Yeah, moldco.com, spelled exactly how you think, moldco.com. And we offer free resources and guides and a free assessment for the common symptoms and environmental signs. We offer low-cost biomarker testing. I mentioned one biomarker, MMP9. Some of the more common other ones are MSH, TGF-beta1, C4a. I know it may sound like Greek to some listeners, but when you have a collection of these markers in the pattern that we suspect, we don't know of any other illness that has that pattern.
It's a signature for that.
It's a signature.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. We also offer environmental testing that's DIY. Usually that's the right step before hiring an inspector if that test lights up. So an inspector helps you identify where the sources are coming from, as well as a more refined view of the level of exposure. The environmental test we offer is a low, medium, high score of how problematic your environment is as it relates to your health. And then we also offer care. So that includes prescription medications and oversight by specialized providers. And all of that is in a concierge care portal where you can DM your provider at any time. And there's a whole care team that supports you at every step along the way. So we've built all of that. I would say like at a price point that's a tenth to 100th the cost of what most brick and mortar clinics would charge.
And some of the people suffering from this, their very means of survival is being threatened because maybe they're not able to work. They're not they don't have a lot of resources. Many of the sufferers of this.
Correct. And a lot of resources are poured rightfully into the environmental side, getting remediation or relocating to a safe environment. It's common to have to throw away a lot of key belongings, especially porous objects like furniture, clothing, rugs, stuffed animals, mattresses, and more, because these patients are so reactive and those things are harder to clean. So the vision is just to allow so much more.
So
Yeah.
a lot of people, don't take my binky away. No, I'm sorry, got to get rid of it.
Yeah, I would say it's so dependent on the patient, how reactive they are to their objects, but the porous materials you tend to want to isolate. For me, I actually kept my things in a storage unit in Miami. I haven't visited it since. And I'm hoping I won't be reactive to it when I go out and pick it up. But if I am, I'm probably going to have to toss a lot of those things in there.
But if you'd like to put a contract out on someone, you might say, here, come retrieve my objects from my storage unit. And, you really put the kibosh on them.
Diabolical.
That's
Yeah.
diabolical. All right.
Yeah.
When we return, more on the subject of mold exposure. This is quite fascinating. And, I think you boiled it down to a real science with your technical background as a chemical engineer. Ariana Thacker are you founder or co-founder?
Founder, but I promoted two of our team members to co-founder, so technically co-founder now, and they're phenomenal. I'm so lucky to be building with them.
Moldco. It's the company moldco.com. I'm Dr. Ronald Hoffman, and this is the Intelligent Medicine Podcast.